Advertising, from the period of reforms to the present. Truth Well Told. Pars McCain Erickson presents. This time there's a different genie coming out of Aladdin's lamp. Here he is, beating out a message on his drum. The Imperial Proclamation of Reform signaled the beginning of a new era of modernization in the Ottoman Empire. Everyone's life, property, estate, honor, and virtue shall be protected. The first European novelty, the photograph, and the first official newspaper to be published, Takvime Vekyai, or Calendar of Events, later to be followed by Ceride-i Havadis, or News Gazette. We come across the first illustrated advertisement in 1864. The advertisements for the book Around the World in 80 Days seems to herald the onset of an entirely new and different kind of world. Our pages are available for all types of advertisement. Servet-i Fünun, or Wealth of Arts, began to be published in 1891. The social life of the period is reflected on its pages. Never before has time ever witnessed such a sultan. Under the oppression and censorship in force in the era of Abdul Hamid, no one paid any attention to new ideas or to the growth of advertising. With the beginning of the constitutional era, a new vitality was brought to social life and to the economy in general. 1909 can be considered the official beginning of Turkish advertising. The Eğlencelik Reklam Ajansı, or advertising agency, which still exists today, was established that year under the name İlanat Acentesi, or Agency of Advertising. But there were dark clouds of war hovering over the skies once again. This was a new blow both to economic life and to advertising. But life went on in spite of the war. While the Western world was testing out its first slogan, teeth like pearls, in Turkey a new lifestyle was beginning to take shape. Tonight I'll be having a drink at Bakos. Don't worry about me. Towards a new world. Wish to publicize your establishment? Bring your announcements to the Agency of Advertising on Baba Ali Avenue. With the dawn of the Republic, a new market on a national scale formed the backbone of advertising, and the era of creativity was born. In those days, automobile ads were familiar friends. Hear about the accomplishments of the rubber-tired Devil's Chariot. This automobile is the mirror of aesthetic enjoyment. With the hat reform, people's tastes in clothes went through a major change. The graphics artist, the young İhap Hulusi, opened his first graphics workshop. In those same years, advertising is the soul of industry, said Abdi Tevfik in his İlanat Fenni, or advertising science, the first academic publication in the field. 1927, the first advertisement to be heard on the radio. A new language. The conversion to Latin letters meant another period of reform. The change was slow to take hold at first, but as the rate of literacy grew, the new letters were to provide a new dimension to advertising. In a changing world, needs and demands were increasing. Another major world crisis was standing at the doorstep, but everyone seemed to be in good spirits. In the end, the crisis exploded. Crowds in the streets, conflicts, unrest, but no one wanted to give up to Charleston.
Charleston, Charleston, made in Carolina, some dance, some prance, I say.
Turkey started its own financial and economic mobilization. I worship you. But when it's love and beauty you're talking about, who could care less? I worship you. 3 meaningful words for a young girl dreaming of a nice, shining engagement ring. In the young Turkey of those days, advertisements encouraged the use of native products and stressed the importance of building up savings. Wars, economic pacts, and, in the midst of all this, the world spellbound with the beauty of the young Turkish girl. Kereman Halis was chosen the most beautiful woman in the world. Adapt yourself to time. Advertising began to play an important role in the formation of new consumer norms. The handsome hero, Frigidaire, was now invading women's dreams. Many products began to be spoken of by their trade names. The world seemed to be looking for an alternative to the crisis it was living through. Then the war broke out. During the war years, the radio became the most important source of communication. The radio was how everyone learned about what was going on in the world. Social events and war became the backbone of advertising messages. With the shortages in its own country, the advertising world in Turkey had its own share of economic problems. The horizons promise a new morning. New economic decisions were being taken. New solutions were being searched for. The lottery ticket was an accepted symbol of hope for everyone, it seemed. In 1944, Turkey's second largest advertising agency today, Fal Ajans, was founded, and the Grafika publishing house, later to develop into another important agency, was also established. The one who hangs on to the savings post will be saved from the cliff of catastrophe. In the post-war years, bank advertisements kept talking of savings, and a definite competitive atmosphere took hold in all the advertising fields.
Kaplarınızı doldurun. Parayı işletip arttırmak için en kısa yol tasarruf bonosu. Yorulmayan mide, yorulan başı iyi dinlendirir. Çapa marka. Yarım görüşlü bir adam olmak ister misiniz? Alman radyoları. Bel sabun tozu siz uyurken çamaşırlarınızı yıkar. Bir bilet 1 lira. Kısmetinizi kesmeyiniz. DP eşya piyangosu. İşte enfes bir bitter çikolatası Nestle.
Your elegance depends on your choice. Big brown eyes, mysterious looks were the fashion now. Eyeliners, lipsticks promised a new beauty. The advertising world had all of a sudden found itself in a new environment. The movie theaters were fast becoming a grand stage for advertising. Important changes were beginning to be seen in graphics and headings. In 1952, one of the first golden years of Turkish advertising, Reklamların was founded.
Vita yemeğin lezzeti midenin dostudur.
Mobile gas, you get that smooth and even power with mobile gas. Your starts are quick when you fill up with mobile gas.
People's habits were rapidly changing. Advertising was reshaping city life and was beginning to have an indisputable influence on the buying habits of the consumer. A new social identity was being formed. Everyone's ideal was to become an instant millionaire. In 1957, the official advertising company was granted the exclusive right to advertise in newspapers and magazines. This was a change from the customary practice which had given the advertising company priority since the 1930s. That year we beat Hungary at soccer 3-1. Advertising began to take its place on the sports field billboards. The security of your money, your future. That same year, the television advertising company was founded in Istanbul and began a systematic program of advertising. Radio advertisements reached out to larger and larger groups of people. The radio was immediately adopted as an important advertising medium. Some of the most important agencies active in this period, SES, SEDEF, and Antan Reklam, are still in business today. Istanbul Reklam, the agency founded in 1959, and the one particularly influential in starting the trend of advertising in the movie theaters, also became active in television advertising in the first years of this new medium. The 1960s marked the beginning of important developments. While the first loads of Turkish workers were being seen off to the diverse countries of Europe, Yüksel Ünsal, Kemal Baysal, and Mehmet Muhtar were producing Turkey's first promotion film in color. Important innovations were taking place in publishing and offset printing techniques. The press and advertising organization was no longer under state control. A merciless competitive promotion race was launched in white goods advertising in newspapers and magazines. In 1965, Fal Ajans was divided and reorganized into Man Ajans and Yeni Ajans. Advertising had formed an identity of its own. Advertising slogans began to make their way into everybody's private life. No mud can mar the color of the sun.
Ben vücut güzelliğimi Ankara makarnasına borçluyum.
Tadına doyum olur bu mis gibi makarnanın, makarnaların arası, Ankara makarnası.
Dayanıklı, emniyetli, sağlam lastik 150.
Övünmek gibi olmasın, artık ben de Pirelli kullanıyorum. Ama hiç de böyle şamata etmiyorum yahu.
Advertising messages were addressing target groups now. A target group with the same social identity, lifestyle, tastes, and speaking the same jargon.
1968 Kasımı. İnsanlar işinde gücünde. Yeni bir gazete doğuyor Babali'de.
"1969, Man on the Moon." It's as if the whole world is in a different field of gravity. The turmoils of the world leave their marks on Turkey too. While all this is going on, the advertising world in Turkey enriches its horizons with new and more varied products.
Şimdi bir reklam. Philips radyoları pilli ceryanlıdır. Fişi çekseniz bile çalışır.
As television begins to cast its spell, popular series provide new material.
Bu başkadır.
Imaginative, creative ads flow into the market.
Söndür şu kaloriferi, biçiyoruz. Üstelik paralar boşa gidiyor. Yöneticimiz uyuyor mu?
Çatıyı izojamla kapladık, üst kattakiler ısındı. Alt kattakiler pişmiyor. Benim de koşmaktan tabanlarım şişmiyor. Sağ olasın izojam.
In 1971, the Society of Turkish Advertising Agencies is formed. Seminars are organized, research is carried out.
Pişirdiniz mi? Hangi yağla? Bir de tereyağı deneyin.
In 1972, television spreads out nationwide, and TV advertising is officially permitted. Television completely changes the whole course of advertising. Which are you? First established as an advertising research company in 1968, Bureau Pars becomes an agency in 1974, operating as a Turkish representative of McCain Erickson, one of the world's leading names in advertising. This is the first cooperative effort with a foreign advertising company. In the same year, too, Grafika and Maya merged to form Turkey's first advertising partnership. Trade names of products begin to define people's lifestyle. A group of advertisers form their own island in the advertising sector.
Şimdi evde olacaktık. Biraları açacaktık. Evde bira içilir. Bira bu kapağın altındadır.
New agencies come into being.
TÜMAK krem deterjan 66 liradır. TÜMAK krem deterjanın içinden kuş çıkmaz. Kaliteli TÜMAK krem deterjan çıkar.
Birle bulaşık kolay.
Political parties also take a new interest in advertising.
Haydi gül biraz. Şimdi dişler bembeyaz. Beyaz beyaz.
People working in the sector begin to group together. The first to organize was the Graphists Professional Association.
Ben Tuzlu Bekir. Tuz denince akla billur tuz gelir.
While the number of advertising agencies grew from day to day, and the sector rapidly developed, a whole new series of events was in store for Turkey.
Değiştireceksiniz. Ve değişeceksiniz.
Değiştireceğiz.
Ve?
Oyuncak bahçesine hoş geldiniz çocuklar. Gelin gelin.
Where the smart money goes. Like a sudden blaze, ambitious stockbrokers overpower the advertising market. The banks raise their interest rates in an effort to compete. The advertising media become arenas for a growing war between bank and broker.
Bir özgürlük duygusudur. İmar Bankası'nda evetle başlayan.
Adım Şaşmaz Beşir.
Beşer şaşar şaşmaz Beşir.
Kafamı kullanıp kendime güvenli bir yol seçtim. Banker Castelli.
Banker Castelli.
Sometime later, market brokers are forbidden to advertise. Banks are also prohibited from advertising on television.
Girin Pamuk Bank'tan içeri, faiz uzmanıyla görüşün. Faizi uzmanından öğrenin, kazanın.
But advertising is still a star in every field. Sometimes with a catchy whistle tune. Sometimes with a clever jingle. It is always an undeniable part of everyday life.
Hem de kolay, yumuşacık. Köpüklü Arko, sabah keyfi.
Arko tıraş kremi.
Keyifli tıraş.
Harikadır Arko arkadaş. Arko tıraş kremiyle arka arkaya rahat tıraş.
Harikadır tıraş Arko.
Political parties tend now to prepare more comprehensive advertising programs as part of their election campaigns.
Bir kişiye verecek tam 60 milyon lira.
Milli piyango,
belki de sıra sizde.
This is life. In 1983, with the advent of color television, advertising technology rapidly reached new dimensions.
Bana bir Schweppes açsana.
Schweppenize.
Young advertising professionals were the pioneers of a new era with their new and original ideas. And with the advertising agencies forming official partnerships with foreign companies, a new page had been opened in Turkish advertising. The first partnerships were Pars McCann Eriksson, Manajans Thompson, and Moran Ogilvy.
Sizi filme aldık.
Yapmayın.
With its own special lingo, its fantasies, its special tricks, its music and effects, advertising continuously plays upon the consumer's imagination. With the initiation into the market of new professionals and progressive technological developments, the bounds of creativity are unlimited. People come face to face with advertising in everyday life, in everyday situations, and at any moment find themselves listening to the voice of the advertiser. Well, well, my friend with no television.
Televizyonsuz kardeşim benim.
Renkli televizyonu diyorum. Yok satamadım. Hediye ettim. Kaynanama. Çok sevindi çok. Şimdi bizim ev mucizeye hazır. Dokun.
Beyazlar daha beyaz, renkliler daha renkli.
Aloyla güzel dünyam, aloyla daha zevkli.
Dokun, karın kaybolsun.
Edi, nasıl çalışıyor bu alet biliyor musun?
Vallahi bilmiyorum. Benden sonra icat etmişler.
Advertising has etched out a solid place for itself within the economic structure.
Gelin kolları, gelin konserve yapalım.
Evinize uçak inmeyeceğine göre samur çok daha uzun dayanacaktır.
Yak uzan, keyfine bak, gün halı bu doğrusun.
Tatlı bir cumartesi sabahı. Bu gelen dolmuş mu oluyor? Ey siz!
Durmadan yakıt parası.
Veriyoruz yetmiyor.
Veriyoruz, doymuyor.
Yakıt parası.
Ne versen yutuyor beyim.
Siz çatınıza izocam kaplatın, paranızı yakmayın.
Şofördür benim dostum, ben de şoför dostuyum. Mobile güven, gerisini merak etme sen.
Aşınmaz, savrulmaz, yol tutar, su tutmaz.
United Colors of Benetton.
At Rexford, USA.
Coca-Cola ile haydi hep birlikte paylaşılsın duygular.
With the increase of foreign partnerships and the widespread use of foreign products in the country, world-known products cover the walls, the newspapers, magazine pages, and movie and television screens everywhere.
Levi's.
Eşek tumor, sevinç tumor. Sade, serin dünyadır.
Tak tak tak, canlansın hayat.
Doyum için, sağlık için, hayat için. Bu pazar küçük bir değişiklik yapın. Aymar. Küçük bir lezzet farkı, küçük bir mutluluktur.
5 yıl daha bu masalları dinlemeye, bir limon gibi sıkılmaya gücünüz var mı?
Political parties seek to establish a place for themselves in the consensus between advertiser and consumer.
Demek okuyanlar dünyayı pembesinden yakalar.
Kadın güzeli seçer. Moda Vakko'dur.
Atalarımın ve benim heykellerimin üzerine altın çelenkler konulacak. Güzel kokular sürünülüp bayram edilecek.
Geçmişin krallarından çağın soylularına.
Ne mutlu siz erkeklere.
Tursilmatik şimdi Werner armağanlı.
Sıcak, rengarenk,
Diana. Renkli bir hayal gibi.
Büyük düşünün. Büyük düşünenlere imkan çok.
Yeniye. Daha yeniye. İş Bankası ve iş bankalıların inancı şudur: daha hızlıya, daha yükseğe, daha güçlüye.
Ben geleceğim. 2.
Yerinize geçseniz.
Gidelim. Başarınızı Ford Taunus'ta ödüllendirin.
In the middle of the 1980s, the Advertising Society was founded. The periodicals, media, and media market represent the voice of the sector.
Milliyet sorar. Milliyet görür.
Milliyet duyar,
Milliyet araştırır.
milliyet yazar.
Milliyet yorumlar.
Günaydın.
Gün günaydınla başlar. Merak eden nokta okur. Ben güneş okurum.
Kolyeler 28 kupona bedava.
Her yaşta ruh sağlığımız.
İlk kupon bu pazar Hürriyet'te.
Sabah konuşan otomobil veriyor. Cumhuriyet her gün sadece gazete verir.
Terliklerinizi atın. Hayata sokaktan bakın.
Olacaksan korkmak ol.
Ciddi misin?
The advertising sector continues to grow, and successful advertisers are granted awards. More and more subsector organizations, such as the Advertising Copywriters Society, are being formed each day.
Panty, panty, panty. Panty, panty, panty.
Future and faces from the past. Children reading history.
Uzayıp giden susuzlukların ardından tabiatın solduğu mevsimde tutkuya dönüşen o arzu.
O pet hijyenik pet. Bazı günlerde hızınızı
Tango. Advertising introduces the masses to new services, new products, and people are continuously learning, listening, and buying. Advertising is a race between products and between agencies, and if we're talking about advertising expense figures, we're talking about big numbers in Turkish advertising today.
başarmaları için onlara destek verin.
ya.
Makarna dediğin nasıl olur söyle, nasıl olur söyle.
Demir döküm, demir döküm.
Çamaşırlar beyazın, etli sabun tozuyla.
Neşe güç verir.
Nar süt, nar süt, yumuşak beyaz.
Pars McCain Erickson thank all those who have provided information and made available their archives to make this film possible.
Hakime sana bana yıldır. Merhaba usta boyacı merhaba. İşte Pepsi'nin